All set. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Well, welcome to the October 16th meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission. My name is Bob Light, Chair. And before we get started, pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. The order allows the Historic District Commission to meet entirely remotely, so as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. All members of the Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Members of the public who wish to view live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. This meeting will not feature public comment. Each vote taken this evening will be conducted by roll call vote. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Light, I'm here. Leslie Harrison.
Here.
Brian Swanson.
Here.
Amanda Millette.
Here.
Millie Milton. Not here. Brian Smith.
Yes, too.
Tom Reardon.
Here.
And Bruce Shute, not here. Lorna Van Dorn, not here yet. Okay, well, thank you. So on the agenda, what I wanted to put first is a presentation from representative of the Trinity Church on their Community Preservation Act update, and we have Pete Carlson and Tim Cashmore will be here to make a presentation. So let me turn it over to Pete at this time to give some introductory remarks.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. And thank you for allowing Trinity Church some time this evening on your agenda to share our plans and solicit your feedback and support for our historic preservation project and planned CPA grant application. I'm Pete Carlson. I'm leading a exterior restoration task force at Trinity Church. I'm also the assistant treasurer of the church. And also here, another member of our task force, Tim Cashmore, is here as well. He's focused on the grant application writing aspect of our work, including our CPA grant application. Lorna Van Horn, who I don't think has been able to join yet, who's an alternate member of the commission, is also a member of Trinity Church and is actually the chair of our governing board. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Hopefully she can join us. So with that, I would like to walk through a brief presentation, and as I go through it, if folks have questions or comments, feel free to ask them at that time.
Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now,
Okay.
Let me
So-
slideshow here. Okay.
Okay, so Bob, you could move ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So as part of qualifying historic projects for CPA funding, given that Trinity Church is not on the national or state register of historic places, we understand that the commission must determine that Trinity's building is significant in the history of the town. And our understanding is that that has already occurred, but we would want to confirm that with the commission this evening as part of our discussion. I'd like to just share a few facts about Trinity's history. The meeting house at 23 Main Street was built by the Evangelical Congregational Church in 1847. And the building has been continuously occupied by the church since it was built, and currently occupied by by Trinity Church, which is the successor to Evangelical Congregational Church when it merged with First Baptist Church of Northborough in 1948. In terms of public benefit, wanted to just mention that today our building is actively used by many community groups, as well as it is hosted by Trinity programs that are open to the entire community. Serving as a community center for Northborough is a key part of Trinity's mission and our vision statement. And just wanted to emphasize that point. Also, in terms of public benefit, we feel that maintaining the building in good condition will help the town in its efforts in terms of the revitalization of downtown. And as noted here, the church is listed in the historic properties inventory. Bob, if you could move to the next slide, please.
Yep.
So we have divided our exterior restoration projects into two phases, phase one and phase two. Phase one work is the subject of the upcoming fiscal 2026 CPA funding request, phase one. And phase two is steeple related work, and I'll be speaking briefly to that later in the presentation. But with respect to phase one, it has three components. The first one is front door restoration, second, large window restoration, and third, restoration and preservation of exterior wood surfaces. And I'll just note there on the third component there, those are wood surfaces below the steeple. The steeple, again, is subject of our phase two work. On this slide is shown a picture of the front door of the church, which we believe dates back to 1871. And the restoration work will involve removal of the door and full restoration of it at the contractor's workshop. Bob, you can move to the next slide, please. The second component of the phase one work is restoration of large windows, 8 large windows in the church. And these large windows we believe, are original to the building when it was constructed. And the restoration will involve removal of the windows and full restoration of them at the contractor's workshop. Given the size of these windows, this is the largest component of our project. One thing I wanted to point out to the commission, and I'll be talking about our budget and the funding request a little later on, but just wanted to point something out for discussion and feedback. In terms of what our estimate for the cost of restoration of the 8 large windows, 6 of these large windows are located, as you'll see in the left slide. There are 3 shown there on the east view of the building. There are 3 on the west side of the building. Those are located in the large room or sanctuary within the building. And then there are 2 other similar sized windows on either side of the front of the building. So that's what comprises the 8 large windows. One thing I wanted to point out is that about 1/5 of the cost, 22% of the cost estimate, involves storm windows. Presently, the 8 large windows have exterior metal storm windows over them that are at least 50 years old, are corroded, and are hard to open and close. We feel that replacement of those windows makes sense at this point and will serve to protect the newly restored wooden sash windows once they're restored. So by offering that protection, we would like to suggest that the storm window replacement be considered as part of the project for funding in terms of preservation of these windows. Bob, next slide, please. The third component of the project involves restoration and preservation of the exterior of the exterior wood surfaces of the original building, plus similar type work on our Hudson Street entrance, which is actually part of the 1950s addition to the back of the building. This would involve repairing or replacing clapboards, trim that are in need of such work, and then painting all of these surfaces. What's depicted in these pictures are, on the left side is the front of the building. So the area there below the steeple would be subject to this work, as well as each side of the front of the building. West side depicted in the middle slide. And then the slide on the right, the picture on the right shows the Hudson Street side of the building, the Hudson Street entrance, as well as it shows, if you look beyond to the right of that Hudson Street entrance, there's an area at the bottom lower part of the building, which is wood surface. It's intended to simulate blocks, but it's actually a wood surface. And up above the clapboards on that side is another area that is a wood surface that would be part of this. The clapboards on the side of the building shown in that picture are actually vinyl siding that was installed within the last 20 years and is in good condition, so that would not be in need of any work as part of this part of the project. We acknowledge that this particular work is critical to preserving the building. We also acknowledge the fact that it would be viewed by many as maintenance work. And therefore, we have structured our funding request taking that into consideration, which will lead me to the next slide, Bob. So this slide is a summary of the project budget as well as the funding request. From left to right, it contains the three project components for phase one that I described. We've also included a small budget component for the costs of preparing a preservation restriction agreement, which we anticipate would be a requirement and an expectation. The base cost estimates are contractor estimates. We've adjusted them up 5% to take into consideration inflation between the estimate dates and when the earliest date that the work would be completed. We've included contingency allowances for each of the contractor components, which brings us to a total cost estimate for the project of $234,510. The CPA funding request would be for $176,072. Trinity's contribution would be $58,037, or approximately 25% of the total project cost. And as I alluded to, we would be looking to allocate Trinity's contribution to the exterior work, recognizing that that work might consider that maintenance more so than preservation. So we thought it might be appropriate for Trinity to fund that component of the project. I'll then go to the final slide, and then we can open it up for any questions or discussion. So on the final slide, just wanted to mention the phase 2 work is steeple. And originally our task force was going to work on the steeple first before the phase 1 work that I've described, sort of a top-down approach in terms of the work on the church. But we had a structural engineer come in and do a survey of the steeple, interior and exterior, in September. And preliminary findings are that there is need for some structural, some of the structure within the steeple is in need of attention. So until we have more specifics on that, we felt it was appropriate to table phase 2 work until we get the report, at which time we can then proceed with assessment, scoping, and planning phase 2. So that concludes my presentation. I'll open it up for questions, discussion.
Okay, well, thank you. Any, well, Leslie, you're on the CPC. Any questions come to mind?
No, just, no, not really. Just all the typical, you to look at the, specifics of the cost breakdowns and whether the typical questions that get asked are whether the project can be phased when they're bigger projects, to spread them out over multiple years. I know you mentioned doing the doing the storm windows at the same time. That makes sense, but maybe do windows. Would you consider doing, windows one time and doing the exterior clapboards and things like that another year? That typically helps as a selling point in terms of getting funding.
Mm-hmm. And Pete, it does sound like you've made a good plan to separate maintenance from preservation for the CPA request. And I do notice you have a plan to do a preservation restriction, and that would be lawyer fees to write up the document.
That's correct.
Okay. So you're all set with the preservation restriction? Is that something the church wants to go ahead with? There are restrictions applying, obviously. Yeah, it does have some requirements on your part, some issues about resale value and things like that have to be considered.
I guess, and I'll ask Tim if he would like to add, but the church's understanding was that from the church's perspective, the fewer restrictions, the better. From in terms of giving us the ability to, conduct our affairs, maintain our property. The fewer the restrictions, the better. It had been our understanding that it would be an expectation that in return for the investment by the town, that a preservation restriction agreement would be expected. I mean, if the commission feels that that wouldn't be necessary, I think from Trinity's perspective, we would prefer to proceed without it. Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
I think that's true. I think our expectation as we sit here today is that we would, continue to maintain the building as a historic building. But obviously, our expectations and making a legal commitment to do that are two different things. But as Pete said, I think we had the sense, when we appeared before the CPC and also eventually before the town meeting, that agreeing to put restrictions like this on the building would probably make it more amenable to the town.
Yeah, I believe it's mandatory for CPA funding.
My understanding is that it's mandatory if the funding is being used for the acquisition of an interest in real estate, but we're not actually acquiring real estate here. But again, I think we have not yet taken this before the congregation as a whole. So, I think we're anticipating that that they would be willing to do that in exchange for the grant funding that we're requesting. But part of our hope, I guess, tonight was to get a sense from the commission, and then from you particularly, Leslie, as a member of the CPC, as to how you would view the restriction. I've spoken very, very briefly with George Pember, who I know represented the First Church on their restrictive agreement. And that's where we got the estimate as to what the cost might be. I think that's, that would be on the high side. It might be less than that.
And the restriction would be with the town of Northborough, as I understand it.
With the town of Northborough, but I believe the first parish, it was this commission that was given the task of enforcing the agreement on behalf of the town.
So it would be the Historic District Commission?
Well, the agreement, I think, is with the town, and then the town, and I believe I'm correct on this. I think that in the agreement, it said that the commission would in effect represent the town in enforcing the agreement.
Okay. Well, there is, for example, there's Preservation Massachusetts, which also authorizes preservation restrictions. They're pretty strict. I think from the town point of view, there might be like an annual inspection required and some other obligations, and it shouldn't be too burdensome.
Yeah.
But, obviously, there's a
and I've looked at the agreement with First Church, and it, again, it's a commitment, no question, but the sense that I got from that was that there's always a communication between the town and the owner, should any questions arise in the future as to what you can and can't do with the land.
Okay. Any other questions? Tom?
So I understand that the church is not listed on either the federal or state historic listings, and you're not subject to the Department of Interior criteria for restoration. So my concern is, what criteria are you using to guide the restoration if you're not using the federal or state guidelines?
I think we would plan to use the federal guidelines. Pete, I think that's what we were expecting, and I guess we just have to make absolutely certain that that's clear to the contractors. But the contractors that we've spoken with are all specialists in doing historic preservation work. So I think they're all familiar with those criteria.
So regarding the repair or replacement of those 8 large windows, what is the age of those current windows? Are they original or they were replaced?
We believe they may be original to the building.
1850, 47. So they're
Yes.
single glazed, true divided light, double hung windows? Is that
That
correct?
sounds correct, yes. Yes.
Okay. And the steel storm windows, are you replacing them with new steel, or are you going with fiberglass or aluminum, or what type of material are you using?
We don't have specific, the contractor gave us the estimate for the window cost, but was not specific as to, more specific as to the exact window. So that's something we would have to get more information from the contractor.
So are the storm windows single glazed or double glazed? Are they insulated glass storms?
The replacements,
Yeah, storms.
I don't know.
Okay.
We would have to follow up with the contractor to get more specific information about the storm windows.
So when you remove the front door and the Hudson Street doors for restoration, you are going to alter the egress pattern of the church. which is an assembly building. So have you taken into consideration how you're going to redirect traffic out of these areas when this work is going on? You have to have a plan for the fire department and the building department to do this type of work and make sure that there are proper egresses maintained. And that's part of the work that your contractor or who's ever overseeing the work will have to put into place. Otherwise, they'd be reluctant to give you a building permit, even
Okay.
for repair.
Okay, yeah, and just to clarify one point, the front doors, which are, as I said, date back, we believe, to the 1870s. Those are, undergo a full restoration. Those doors are used primarily on Sunday morning. They're not a main entry point or exit point for the building. The Hudson Street entrance, we're not doing anything with the Hudson Street doors. The Hudson Street entrance work is essentially painting, applying fresh paint to that entrance. But your point is well taken. We would need to have plans in place, as you described.
Pete, if I could,
Yeah.
I thought that the contractor's proposal for the front doors was to replace that with another temporary entryway during the period that the doors were being renovated in his shop, so that there would, I thought, still be access and egress through that.
Yeah, actually, thank you. That's correct. That he's going to install temporary replacement doors for the front doors while the doors are in the shop. The question would be when he's working on, removing, or when he's working on the door frames and the trim around the doors, and that door can't be used while we're on site working in that area. We need to have plans, provisions for alternate ways of entering and exiting the building. That was your point, Tom?
Yes, because that replacement door needs to conform to the building code and the Architectural Access Board accessibility codes. You can't put a standard doorknob. You need either a crash bar or lever handle. So your contractor is responsible for making sure that the temporary replacement door and the hardware have to conform to the code.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a little bit off topic, but one of the things we've been discussing at the commission is the possibility of having a historic district in this section of Main Street. And Trinity Church obviously would be one of the cornerstones of that. And our concern would be that any historic restoration would not undermine this church's status as a cornerstone of such district. So we'd be very interested in making sure that whatever's done does follow the Department of Interior guidelines for restoration, even if you're not listed.
That's right. And in looking at the definitions of restoration versus rehabilitation, it was a little confusing. It looked like restoration is sort of a subset of rehabilitation. So we took a look at those standards, and I think Tim and I have both taken a look at those standards, and there's nothing that surprised us. And I think our expectation would be to abide by them.
Are you doing any kind of paint analysis to get back to the original colors, or this is just going to replace the colors that exist today? Is that front door an 1847 blue? Is that what I'm getting at?
Okay. That's a
Good
good
question. I think all the contractors we've talked to have basically said, Trinity Church but I suppose we could consult with the contractors as far as how we might go about that.
Because they're
I
going to be
don't-
stripping
I-
it. Yeah, they're going to be stripping it down to the bare wood, and
Yeah.
that will reveal possibly what the original color scheme was. And then you could decide whether you'd want to restore that color or maintain the blue or go in another direction.
Okay, okay.
But blacks were very popular in the middle of the 19th century in terms of trim, doors, etc. So you may have had originally a black door. I don't know.
Okay. I have to honestly say our focus has been more on, boy, those doors are drafty. We need to do something to cut down on our energy bills.
I hear you.
Your point is well taken. Thank you.
So Pete, you're definitely going to be submitting a CPA proposal by the end of the month, or?
What we're going to do is, with this commission's feedback, we're going to go to our governing board, which Lorna chairs. And I spoke with her. I said we'd like to convene a meeting with the governing board to get their agreement to proceed. So the plan would be we'd be meeting with them before November 1st to get their decision on whether or not to proceed. But I think between Tim and I think we're looking to move forward as members of our task force.
Yeah. And our expectation, barring unanticipated opposition, I guess, from the church, is that we would be submitting that by November 1st.
And I assume then you would require a letter of support from the commission.
We will need a letter of support from the commission, whether it comes, as a result of this meeting or as a result of responding to questions that may arise. But yes, that's going to be a requirement for the application.
Would that be required November 1st, by November 1st with the application, or could it be later?
Ideally, it would be with the application, but looking at some of the applications that have been submitted in the past, it looks like it sometimes comes after November 1st.
Okay.
And I think my understanding is that there's, some flexibility in terms of supplementing the application after the original submission.
Yeah, it's a rolling process over the first few months. Our
Okay.
first meeting is on the 7th, so we're just getting started.
Okay.
Yeah, Bob, I don't know what your thoughts are at this point, but I mean, at a minimum, I think what we'd like to do is be able to indicate in the application we've met with the commission, and the commission has expressed support, and a letter of support will be forthcoming.
Well, is there any hi, Rudy.
Hi.
This is not an open meeting, so we really can't field questions
Okay.
at this point. Okay, so besides the letter of support, and I don't think we have any other questions for you at this time. I think it's a worthy project, certainly.
Well, Bob, I would suggest that we offer a letter of support, but we'd also like to see more detail on the scope and the nature of the materials used, et cetera. Do they have any drawings of the replacement windows? What's forthcoming from the contractors? Shop drawings?
Is the restoration of the windows being done by the same company that did the Historical Society building?
We would Um, what was the work in the Historical Society building? that was
They've
done?
restored their windows as well. And they had
Okay,
a
we
specialized.
could, I don't know, but we can certainly check to see if that's the case.
Yeah, I think it's worth, because I know they did a lot of vetting of
Okay.
various companies that had done historic restoration of
gone-
windows too. And
Pete,
Tom,
have
do you remember? You might
gone out
remember,
to
Tom.
bid, or have you just talked to one contractor? Did you get competitive bidding on these components?
We got estimates bids from 2 contractors for the sanctuary windows.
Okay,
It wasn't really an apples to apples comparison. The other contractor that we're not inclined to go with, his approach was a little different in terms of the degree of restoration that he was proposing to do. We were looking for a more extensive restoration effort. That was why we went with the one that we have in mind at this point. As far as the front doors are concerned, we have one bid at this point in time. We didn't find a lot of specialists who were interested in providing an estimate or bid for that work.
so had you considered using interior energy panels rather than exterior steel frame storm windows? It would allow the historic detailing to be appreciated better if you did the energy retrofit on the interior rather than the exterior.
In terms of the storm windows,
Yes. I mean, my experience, if it's possible to do an interior energy panel or interior storm panel as opposed to an exterior, the restoration of the original windows would be able to understand and see the detail better, because sheets of glass read black, and if you're putting it over your true divided light, you're not going to see that detail as much.
as is currently the case.
Correct. So looks like you're trying to replicate a retrofit from the 50s rather than say, okay, how can we make our historic building be more easily appreciated? Allow the details to shine through.
Yeah. Tom, I think, in terms of another member of our task force worked on getting the contractor estimate for the windows. I think we'll need to go back and speak with him, go back to the contractor and get some more specifics and details, options from that contractor, and we can come back with that information.
So do you ever open these windows?
We do, yes.
Okay. So the energy panels would have to be attached to the sashes that are fixed and are operable. So that may complicate things from the interior.
Okay. I see.
So these are single hung, meaning the top sash is fixed and the bottom moves, or both sashes move?
Well, in the present state, only the lower sashes are moving.
Okay.
Whether that's due the design or because they were painted shut, I'm not certain.
Okay. I understand.
Painted or warped or.
Well, I suggest we move on. At this point, unfortunately, I think from what I understand, from what I gather from the commission is that we are not really ready to vote on providing a letter of support, but we would require more information. Now, that's going to lead us to a timing issue because we're not meeting again till mid-November. So I'm wondering if it would be possible if you could submit to us the draft and then with the CPC explain that we need to review as well as they do, and that a letter of support would be forthcoming once we get the chance to review it and give our inputs. I think that makes some sense. It's not going to meet the November 1st deadline.
I think we could submit an application by November 1st with that sort of an explanation if,
Yeah.
Leslie, does that sound like something the CPC would be okay with?
Oh, yeah, yeah, pretty.
I think the point is that I think it's more meaningful if we have a chance to review the application, give feedback, and then write the letter of support. And we would, I'm assuming, tell me if I'm wrong, if everyone, that the commission will vote whether to submit a letter of support or not. But it would be a formal vote. We're not quite ready to do that yet, but certainly it's, I think the odds are good, but I think we have a lot to offer. I know Tom would have a lot to offer in terms of feedback of the proposal that you submit. And then we could vote on it at our next meeting. Now, it might be possible to have a special meeting to do that, to push it up a few weeks, but I'm not sure that's gonna matter too much.
It doesn't sound like that's essential to
Yeah.
ask you to do that.
Okay, so we could vote on that after we review what you submitted, give feedback, and you could explain that in your application that you've met with us, and in general, we're supportive and we're just looking for details to make sure that it's fits within the preservation plan of the commission and the town.
I mean, those details are gonna be important for the application anyway, so.
Right. And then you're going to, you've already picked out a lawyer, you said, for the preservation restriction.
Yes, reached out to George Pemberg, who,
Okay. And then he could explain to your board about the restrictions and the
Right.
possible pitfalls, advantages, disadvantages, to make sure that, okay.
You realize that George went to Holy Cross, do you?
I think he also went to BC.
BC Law?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, if there's anything else? Any other questions? Very informative. Thank you very much for the presentation. We wish you well.
Thank you, Bob and Commission. We appreciate all the time you allowed us this evening. We really do.
Thank you.
Okay, and keep us in the loop, and we'll supply whatever help is needed and going forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you. So moving on, next on the agenda is prior meeting minutes. Everyone has received a copy of the last minutes from September 17th, was it? September 18th. Any changes, corrections? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 18th?
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
Okay. All right. So Amanda,
Aye.
Brian Smith,
Aye.
Tom Reardon.
I was not present at that meeting, so I abstain.
Okay. Leslie,
Aye.
Brian Swanson,
Aye.
and Bob Light votes aye. So the minutes pass. Thank you. Next is the status of current CPA projects. The Brigham Street Burial Ground. So if you remember, that project has about $7,000 left. And we talked about what to do with it besides planting trees. And one of the thoughts that came up at the last meeting was some sort of a bench and maybe a marker to acknowledge some of the grave area where there are where we know there are graves, but they're not marked. So I wanted to see if I can share here. Okay. So Leslie, you pointed out about the bench at the Ellsworth Park.
Well, I spoke with, oh my God, blanking on her name.
Lori Connors,
No, oh my God, rec department.
Ally.
Ally, yes, Ally, yes. Yeah, so I reached out to Ally to talk about just the area to the right that we had discussed and mentioned the bench, and she had mentioned that they had gotten some for Ellsworth McAfee. So you went and took a look?
Yeah, this is the bench. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. What I was considering is, okay, this is the map of the burial ground, and in the blue outline is where we have the graves. Most of them are unmarked at this point, but where we think there are graves. And there are, let's see, according to our marker, there are 43 known, probable, or possible graves based on the ground, what's it called?
GPR, ground penetrating radar?
I say ground penetrating radar. So I went there and I plotted out where this line is. And it's somewhere between this the old road and the marker. Okay. So here is what I plotted out is if you notice the mailbox, it's around this marker and a straight through line, which goes out to, I think, that point there, is probably the boundary of where there are graves to where there are no graves. Now, everything to the right, or I guess that would be east, was probably land that was put aside for the burial ground, but never used, because I assume at that point the Howard Street came into being. So what I would propose is that if we were to do a bench, we put it somewhere here, and then acknowledge the fact that to the left of the bench or to the west of the bench are roughly 43 graves. By the way, the point came up at one point, Leslie, where we talked about 50 graves, and I wonder where that number came from. Because when I went back and checked, it looks like there's 43 grave spots.
Yeah, I don't recall 50, but yeah, maybe that was just an estimate.
Okay.
I think Beth Finch McCarthy's inventory is the most reliable we've got.
The GPR report actually lists 116 possible graves, but
Wow.
we only have 43 missing. I mean, 43 mentioned. So anyway, that was my one proposal. So the next point is, besides a bench like this, I think my preference, let's see if I can
Yeah,
find it.
that's, in my opinion, that is not a bench that's pretty enough for a cemetery.
No, it isn't. My proposal was to, if I could find it, here we go. Something like that. And it turns out that this is actually cheaper.
Really?
I got a quote on this, and it's only about $1,200, and we could put on an engraving here.
The only thing is, I think Ally said they needed to put a slab underneath it. There was something
I'm
about
not-
ADA compliance. She said that at least for the ones at Ellsworth McAfee, they had to.
Okay, but this I think was taken at the Howard Street burial ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Actually, Norm took this picture, so I don't know exactly where it was. But I believe he said it was Howard Street.
Yeah, Tom might know something about the accessibility issue. I don't know.
Well, would this be considered a bench in a public area, public access area? If so, you can't use bark mulch or other non-stable materials on the path to the bench. This looks more like a memorial than a bench, though.
Well, it's a bench, but I'm not sure it's really designed to be sat on. But
Yeah.
it would be a way to mark the area. Now, I don't know if anyone else has any other suggestions, but for the price and it also, this does look like it's appropriate for a burial ground.
What happened to the idea of having some of the granite posts with a chain around the area where the existing stones are? Is that idea been?
That, according to Scott, he couldn't do that for the $7,000.
Okay.
So we're limited to 7,000. This is going to put us, I don't know about with the engraving and the base, maybe $2,000, and then we'd have $5,000 left over for trees.
I mean, the other option is to roll the money over to consider what we really want to do and roll that money into, we don't have to use it. We can roll it into next year and attach it to another project, I think. Not another project, but a continuation of this expansion of this project.
So we would have to request more money then.
Yeah, we'd have to put another application. It's just a thought. Because I
like
agree
that
with
idea, yeah.
what Tom had said, I think is something we were looking at. Do you have any idea? Do we have any quote on what that would be? You know, Bob, I don't remember anything being quoted.
I don't have a quote. He just when I talked about putting the fence around the existing 5 graves, he said it would be more than 7,000. The other thing is that we're getting requests also from various people about putting trees in also. And in fact, there is a Girl Scout project that I was told about. Laura Zitten from the select board mentioned she's working with the Girl Scouts about a tree planting project, trying to get some clarification as to whether that would be funded by the Girl Scouts. I doubt it, but it would be something that they would do as a project if we took some of the $7,000 for trees. So those are a couple options.
Tom, are you saying if we put this bench in, we'd actually have to have a little path, a stable path to get to it, or would it pass as a monument instead of a bench, and we wouldn't need to do that?
Yeah, I think if you classify it as a monument, then you wouldn't need to have public access to it.
Then I think it's a monument.
So let me see. Any other thoughts about how we should proceed? I could get back to Scott. I already have a quote on this thing. We'd have to come up with some wording of this and where to place it. I think I've marked out an area where I think it should go.
Well, Bob, you need to consider if it does get interpreted as a public bench, then the grade to that bench cannot exceed 1 in 20. Otherwise, you'd have to build a ramp. So you have to make sure that the grade is relatively flat.
The grade.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole property is about as flat as,
That looks pretty
Okay.
flat to me, but I don't know how to measure grade. It was hard enough for me to try to pace off where the boundary was.
Well, I have a level that tells me what the grade is. So it doesn't take any math. Just put it on the ground. If you know where you're thinking of placing something.
Yeah, it looks. I guess I could do that, but it looks pretty flat. But anyway, if we were to go with the bench approach and an acknowledgement of the 47 graves, that's one proposal, and then whatever's left over, we put into trees. The other proposal that was mentioned by Leslie is to do nothing until we get more funding.
I mean, I'd love to look at the right side, and I mean, I guess that's another project, but to see what kind of passive recreation I did. The reason I called Ally was not about the benches. I was asking about that right side to see if she had any ideas for passive recreation. And the first thing that came out of her mouth was community garden. So they really need community garden space. I didn't think that, just my opinion is that that would not be an appropriate spot for it. It's a perfect spot, but it's not with the burial ground right next to it.
Right. And I know the Girl Scouts really want to do a tree planting project.
Be good to hear what Scott says about the cost of the other post and chain detail around the existing gravestones.
Okay.
I mean, if it's 30,000, I'd say, well, let's do the trees. But if it's 14, maybe we can go back for additional funds at another time.
So do you mean a circular around it, or do you mean just dividing, just going from like a 90-degree from the front to the back?
Yeah, a circle or a square around the existing stones kind of sets them apart.
Well,
Because the other option would be just to bisect the whole area, right? It's mostly to the, can you pull that up again?
okay, so this is the area. So the problem is, are you talking about the red area? That's where the
Yes.
existing graves are.
Right.
But then that ignores all the other graves that are unmarked.
Yeah, that's what we're concerned about, is that people don't even know. So that's why I'm wondering if that right side would be that the chain would just go where the right side of your box is.
You mean the blue box?
Yeah, you go from the front to the back along that line. So it kind
Oh,
of
you mean-
bisects so you know that the left is burials and to the right there's nothing.
I see what you're saying. Instead of a bench, we're looking at it's a long way to go. It might not go the whole way, maybe just part of the way. And then it would still need some sort of a plaque.
Yeah. Yeah, and that marker, I mean, I like the bench that you're talking about. I think it's pretty. I'm just trying to think of if we were to, there's just a big area where it's unknown.
All right, well. I don't have a sense that we all want to go in the same direction. So I think maybe I should talk to Scott again.
I think it's worth doing a field trip out there too.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just a thought.
All right. I'll send something around. Did you want to do something this week?
I can. I'm leaving tomorrow for 10 days, so I'm gone until the 27th.
Okay. All right, let's table this idea. Think about it and get back to me if you have any other thoughts. And I thought, I just thought we could. I just don't want to lose the money. I don't know if what happens to it if it doesn't get spent. Let me check on that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it quote gets lost, it would just go back into the historic reserves in the CPA pot. It wouldn't.
Right, but then we wouldn't get trees either, so. All right, I won't do anything until we meet again to vote on what our plans are, but that was my option, the bench, some wording and whatever trees we could plant. So let me get some more details about the cost of the trees and the cost of a post and chain. Okay, next on the agenda, I'm going to move along here. The nothing new on the Howard Street National Register status. I have to check with the consultant again. And I did send Andy a question again about the warped cemetery signs at Howard Street. And I have not gotten a response, so.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
New CPA proposals, so.
But he's on the CPC with me, so I can.
Andy is?
Yeah, so I can
Oh,
bug him,
okay.
up and see him.
All right, good. Yeah, just find out what his plans are. I am working on a CPA proposal under the Northborough Revolution 250, but it's very much in keeping with goals and objectives of the Historic District Commission. It's basically a monument dedicated to the Revolutionary War soldiers. There's some 124 Northborough residents that fought in the Revolution, 50 of which were Minutemen. So that is something that we're working on now. It's coming, even though I'm writing it and submitting it, I'm submitting it under the Revolution 250, but also that it is in keeping with the Historic District Commission. Now, keep in mind, the Revolution 250 committee is also made up of Cultural Council, Community Affairs, and the Northborough Historical Society and American Legion. So there are other organizations. So this is basically, from what I've been told, is the CPA funding would probably go through the Historic District Commission, but it would be managed by the Revolution 250. So I don't think there was anything that we needed to vote on for that because it's coming from an independent committee. And the proposals are due next in a couple of weeks. So another option is we maybe not for this time, but we should think about for next year at least other historic markers that we might want to propose. And in the preservation plan, there is a list of historic markers that we have, and there's also a list of possible historic markers that we could do. But that's going to require basically coming up with some wording and design and getting quotes. So I'm not sure that's going to be doable for this go around. But I just want to make everyone aware of what I've been working on for the monument. The monument, I think, is certainly in keeping with the objectives that we have in the preservation plan. Okay, moving right along. Next on his list is the Lyman Street Farm Community historic markers, and I have not heard anything back on that yet. I will try to follow up. Next is the new alternate member update, Rudy Volk, who's here. I'm still waiting for an update. There's from the select board interview committee. I guess they were looking for some more information, and I tried to contact Julianne Hirsch, and she was going to get back to me. She had to check with another member of the select board. So I have no updates. Rudy, do you have any update on that? Have you heard?
No, I didn't heard anything. Thank you.
All right. It's I don't know what the holdup is. So hopefully by next meeting you'll be a member. I think you'll have to be sworn in and everything, but I will try to follow up again with Julianne just to see. I thought I would hear by this meeting and I didn't. Okay. We're running late, but we'll try to finish up within a half hour. Committee representation updates. CPC, Leslie, I think you people had a meeting last couple of weeks.
No, we're having our first meeting on the 7th.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Anything else
No, just getting
Okay.
started.
And Millie's not here. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the Master Plan Implementation Committee? No? Okay. And for the Northborough Revolution 250. So I did mention that the CPC request. We are also. We also submitted a ARPA proposal for about $9,000 to cover the expenses, most of the expenses of the proposal that we submitted to the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism that was unsuccessful. So in some consultation with the select board, it looks like there is still some time and money available. So we submitted a proposal. It was a modest proposal, but it would cover some of the colonial attire and some of the expenses for the Minuteman celebration that we're planning for next April. So that proposal is submitted and we're just waiting to hear. And we've already started making videos. So we've had a video of the Tea Party that's already been filmed and now being edited. And we filmed the Minuteman statue video. There's also going to be a video of the muster site for the Minutemen. And the Knox Trail, I believe, was the next one on the agenda. Okay. New business. I'm going to turn this over to Leslie. You were talking about a possible objective for the commission of forming a certified local government or of getting a local government approved. I'm sorry. I apologize. It was Millie.
I was going to say, I have no idea
Yeah,
what
no.
you're talking about.
I apologize. It was
Okay.
Millie. And
So Bob, you skipped over the fire station,
oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay.
but just to update that Monday on the 7th, there was a special town meeting. 575 residents showed up and they voted 75% in favor. So then November
Amazing.
5th is a vote to approve that. We need a simple majority on November 5th to proceed with the fire station project. So it's a sixth item on the ballot.
Right. And now it has to pass on the ballot on November 5th, right?
Correct.
And then that's the last hurdle.
Correct.
Okay. There's been a lot of back and forth about the stone wall again. And I tried to explain, I don't think we have to worry about the stone wall at this point. It's going to be a long time before they actually start construction. But you had mentioned that there was maybe 100 linear feet of stone wall that would have to be moved and the other would not have to be disturbed.
No, I think there's out of 1,900 linear feet, I think 400 linear feet
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
displaced by the
was-
building and the retaining wall.
Right, it was 400 to 500 feet. So
Yeah.
the question is the contractor going to pay for they're going to have to clear the stone wall?
Right now, it's to be stockpiled on the front of the site for, we don't know what the final determination is because there's no one, the DPW doesn't want 400
Right.
linear feet of stone on their site. So we don't have any takers yet.
Okay. When you say the front of, do you mean right on the road
Well,
or in the back?
there's a site plan that shows it being stockpiled in the right front corner. I don't know if that's feasible or not, but that's where it sits right now. Construction drawings are about 75% done, so
Okay.
That's a big pile of rocks from 400 or 500 feet.
It would be better if it was stored in the back of the building up on the hill.
but then how would you get to it? You just put a pile of rock and then let it roll down over time? I don't know what you'd want to do with that material.
That's true. I didn't think that through.
Does the fire department do landslide training?
They have the materials for it.
Well, just to let you know, it's an issue. It's something to consider. Is the fire station building committee going to remain active at this point?
Well,
Or does
once
that get turned over?
you have a positive vote on November 5th, the design team would complete the construction drawings, try to go out to bid, in January. It takes, 4 to 6 weeks to bid. Hopefully you award a contract in March and then site work would start. So that's the ideal.
Okay, well, good job on the committee. Happy that it passed. Thank you.
Yeah, the presentation was great. It was a good meeting.
It's a good meeting.
The rowdy ones in the back that had to be removed.
Yeah.
Okay, so and just going back to the certified local government, if you're not aware of it, it's a voluntary partnership program, and it's issued to it comes from the state of Massachusetts, and it's for towns that have historic districts and some experience in preservation of property, which of course we do. And there are several towns already listed, and for example, just to give you, let's say Beverly, Bedford, Boston, Brookline, Danvers, Dedham, Framingham is the closest one to us, Lexington, Marblehead. And in order to, and there are some advantages to being listed as a certified local government, is that certain grant money is set aside for those towns. So Millie had mentioned that, and we were going to put it on the agenda to discuss, and I'll just push that off until next meeting. Okay, so that's it for committee representation and certified local government. Legacy tree program, nothing new to report. I still need to write the application, which I have to do by the end of the year. Nothing new on 9 and 13 Church Street in terms of any demolition requests that come through, but once that happens, we're gonna have an open meeting to approve that. We had Brian drafted letters of appreciation to 49 Church Street for the renovation of their property in the historic district, as well as the new owner letter of appreciation for 206 South Street. Amanda, you sent me the information about 206 South Street.
Yep.
Brian
Yes, I
drafted a
did.
letter. Sorry?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Brian drafted a letter and I signed it and sent it off. So that's all set. And that's all I have. Let's see. I attended the Preservation Massachusetts Annual Preservation Conference in Worcester, and it was very interesting. There was some tours of some of the renovated properties that they have. It was held at the theater. I'm sorry, what's the
Hancock,
Hanover Theater.
Hanover.
Very interesting because we had a tour of the Hanover Theater backstage, and it's really a historic building. But there was
cool.
the one tour that I went on had to do with the Armory, the Memorial. What do you call it? The Memorial Convention Center,
More auditorium, I think.
Memorial Auditorium, right? Which used to, I think they used to play basketball. Holy Cross played basketball there at one
They
point.
did, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to
So-
games there.
Right. So anyway, there's a group that is doing the renovation. It doesn't look like they're a nonprofit. Doesn't look like they're out for new money. The building essentially is owned by the town of Worcester. They're coming through plans to try to revitalize it and turn it into another site for music and plays and whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I also learned a lot about preservation plans, preservation restrictions. So, okay, anything else before the commission? No other items. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Do you want to mention next time, Bob?
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. The next meeting is scheduled for November 20th. And it should be just a regular meeting. We'll probably do it by Zoom if that's okay with everyone. Yes, okay. Okay, November 20th. I will send something out about that before the meeting. Now, any other items? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And second,
Second.
Okay, Amanda,
Aye.
Brian Smith,
Brian Smith, here. Or
you want
there.
to adjourn, don't you, Brian? We'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Tom Reardon,
Yes.
Brian Swanson,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
and I move to adjourn. Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Sorry we went a little bit late, but it's a good meeting, and we'll see you next month.
Great.
Happy
All right, thank you.
Halloween.